And welcome back to part number 3. So now that we've created the whole section of the body of R2D2, we're going to go ahead and fix the shading on it, of course, because we want it to look correctly. So the first thing we do is we're going to do Alt-Z, which should be turning off X-ray mode. Let me see, Alt-Z, there it is. As you can see, again, we have the same facet problem. So we are going to go into Edit mode. And as you can see, we have face selected, which is number 3 shortcut. And I believe if I do Alt and click, it gives me the whole circumference around. So we have this section that we want to go ahead and shade. So now that we have all this selected here, and this is one of the things that when it comes to 3D Studio Max in relation to Blender, this is one of the things that I really hate about Blender, and I wish it would change, is that in 3D Studio Max, there's a thing called, you can choose how you could assign smoothing groups, which basically says that this piece of the geometry is going to be smooth, this piece is going to be rough. But the problem is in 3D Studio Max you have more control of it. So on the only thing that you can do in Blender, for example, when it comes to smoothing, you have 2 options. So if I go ahead and click like this, and then I do shade smooth, it's going to give me the right shading. However, if I go ahead and select this whole down section here as well, so let's go ahead and select all the pieces that I want to be smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go hit Alt, select this section right here, and I'm going to go ahead and this shade smooth. And then right here, since this doesn't have, this is basically a flat plane, you don't need to do anything with it. So right here you have the option to do shade flat, and then that means that it's not going to have that smooth shading around. So when we zoom out, as you can see now, it's shaded smooth like I wanted to. And the point that I wanted to get is that when it comes to smoothing and how your mesh is shown on display and in game engines, 3D Studio Max has slightly more control in terms of how you smooth things. When we get to it, I'll kind of give you an example where it gets really annoying with it. But for the time being, as you can see, we have R2D2, which is basically a large deodorant looking roll at the moment. The body is looking good. So now that's done. As you can see, we have a good alignment. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be creating one of these leg sections, which is going to be a little bit more complex. Second part is as well, right now when we're doing this, we're going to go ahead and hold off on optimizing this thing. When we get to the end of it, we're going to focus on building the model first. And after we build the model first, then we're going to go ahead and optimize it so it runs more efficiently for games and such. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I have these 2 sections, I'm going to go ahead and exit edit mode, and I'm going to hit Control and select both of these because I don't need these, and I'm going to hit H to hide that one, and I'm going to select this one as well, H, and if you want to undo it again, Alt H, just so you know. So here, H, H, we have that section. So now we're going to go ahead and work on the side view, which is where we need to if we're going to create both his legs and his middle section legs to R2D2, the part that's hidden under the body and such. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this so I am looking at side view, and again I'm going to go ahead and create a new geometry, which as you can see, the easiest place to start out is with a half sphere. But before you do that, remember to hit Control S to save your work. Good. And then after I've saved my work, I'm going to hit Shift A, mesh, and I'm going to go with a cylinder. So as you can see now, it's not quite as lined up as I want to be, because when I raise it here, it's obviously not facing the right orientation. So as you can see, I moved it so it kind of finalized my mesh. So I'm going to go ahead and delete, Shift A, mesh, and I'm going to go ahead and create a cylinder. So that's why it's, for the first initial alignment, it's best to do it right in that menu right here where we have all your options. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the rotation first. So let's say try Y 90 degrees to see if that's the case. As you can see, no, it's not. Control Z, piss. Okay, so before we start, as you can see, I actually missed something. So before we actually start building the leg, let's go ahead and fix this section of R2D2. As you can see, because from the side profile, as you can see, it's lining up perfectly well, but when I put it onto the side profile, there's sections here that I didn't create. So that means that I have to create this, and I'm going to have to take this section and add it before. So for the sake of for completion, let's go ahead and make sure the mesh is completed. So it's this little section right here and right here that's not quite done. So what am I going to do to affect that? So I'm going to go ahead and exit X-ray view, and then I'm going to go to object mode to edit mode, and I'm going to want to extrude these two little sections right here because they have an extrusion there that is what we are not seeing and such. So, but you know what, before I do that, these things are going to get in the way, so it actually doesn't have to be lined up as it is. So I'm going to go object mode, I'm going to click on this, move it on this axis a little to that direction, this one right here, that direction, because if you look front view, you can still see it. If you look side view, you can still see it, but now it's like when I look around the mesh, it's not really going to interrupt me that much. So I'm going to go ahead and lower that down there. Cool. So I'm going to go back to edit mode, have those two selected, Control Shift and select the two back ones. That's good. And then what am I going to do now? I'm going to extrude those faces inside. So I'm going to go ahead here, extrude region, or Shift space bar E, take the little cursor, move it down where it lines up with the bottom. It's good. So as you can see now, I kind of have two issues. Of course, the mesh is extruding and we don't need that. We need to unify this together, and we also want to have it be where the tapering on this section is correct. So what am I going to do first? I'm going to go ahead and select menu. I'm going to select these four right here. And I'm going to hit X. Faces, as you can see, that deleted it. Same deal here. X. Delete the faces. So now we could have that. So when I go and unify this, it's they're not going to have any overlapping faces, which is a big no-no when it comes to 3D. So what am I going to do next? These sections right here need to be a little bit scaled. So I'm going to go into X-ray mode or wireframe mode in the viewport shading, and I'm going to go ahead and select this and this, these two sections, as you can see. I'm going to go into front view, and I am going to scale these on one axis so they line up more or less with the rest of the shape or the tapering of the mesh. So as you can see, I did it on that axis, and when I rotate it on this one, it's done nothing. And then what's going to be the next part? The next part is going to be take these elements and join them together. So how are we going to join these elements together? How are we going to close this off so it kind of works for what we need it to do? So what we're going to do that is we're going to weld these vertices. So the first thing you're going to do right here is you're going to go up to right here, the Shift tab, the snap menu, you click on this. So that means now when I move vertices, it's going to snap it to either vertices, faces, and such. So before I do that, I'm going to click on the menu by snapping, and I'm going to choose by vertex, which means that now when I move this, when I click on move this, as you can see, it snapped it, but however, to save a step, we want to go ahead and do it where it welds when we snap. So we do undo, and if you go to options, auto merge right here up to the top, auto merge, and then when I take this and snap it here, if I deselect and now move it, as you can see, it's automatically welded, this is one of the options that they have in Blender that they don't have in 3D Studio Max, which is amazing. So of course, before you move stuff into direction, you have to make sure you snap it to the right place. So in this case, snap it to this one, and this occasion, snap it to this one. Do the same for the other pieces. Take that, snap it, that, and snap it, and that's snapped how I need it to be inside. So now that that's good, I'm going to go into the side view, and I'm going to scale these two vertices sections right here, this one and this one, so it kind of lines up with the initial shape. So to select that, I'm going to go into wireframe view and shift, select these two, make sure they're good. Yes, they are. Back to that view, and then I'm going to hit scale, and then I am going to non-uniform scale on this axis, on the red one. And then as you can see now that tapering effect lines up. And then when I rotate to this front view right here, it lines up there. And if you want to see how it looks, that's kind of how it looks. So as you can see, now it's when the shading issue starts to give me a problem, because as you can see, it starts to turn a corner and it's still shading all as one. And to do that is something that I quite can't do in Blender, is to have these this element and this element shading as a little bit separate. So let's see what happens. Kind of give you an example of this problem that I'm talking about. So I'm going to go into face mode, which is 3, select these two, and then if I click and do shade flat, I will go off edit mode and show you the problem that I have. As you can see, I put it into shade flat, and the idea was that when this shading right here turns the corner, you have a hard edge right here, but it's still shade smooth. So the thing is, I have two options. I could either leave it shade flat like this, which you can see two facets, which I don't like, or the second option is going to have to be that I'm going to go into edit mode again, select these two, right click, shade smooth. And so that's the two options. That's the thing that I really hate about Blender, is how the lack of control when it comes to smoothing groups and such. So that's about the 10-minute mark on this video. I'm going to go ahead and stop it, and I will see you at part 4.